Guys, welcome. We just kind of wanted to take a chance to start doing case studies of specific clients that we're working with, and just highlighting some of the process that we follow, but trying to give specific examples of like what this client was dealing with, some of the things they had tried that had helped, some of the things that they were trying that were not helping, and then just using this as a way to hopefully like have other people learn from this specific case. So Richie, like you've been working with this athlete for a number of years, right? And he's kind of had some ticks down in velocity recently, right? And so his goal was to throw harder and adjust. I mean, you can kind of explain more detail than me, but
Yeah, we can go through a 3-year view, or I guess 2.5, almost 3-year view of what Hutch has gone through. Um, so let me share my screen here. I think that's the easiest way to relate to people is just to
because he was just a
go
compressed
through.
narrow, right? Like, and you took out his. It would be kind of cool to talk about how you took out all of his upper body and started throwing harder. He was dealing with just like mechanical changes and velocity, right? Would that be what you'd say? Or
Yeah, I'll just walk you through it
loss
here.
of
Let me
feel?
screen share. Boom. All right. This is summer of 20, no, winter of 2022. So this is right before his senior year of high school. So we get to see some stuff. So to backtrack a little bit and go through kind of eval process, we'll look at some posture photos in a minute, but I don't have any from back. They're like more current posture photos that we've been working on. But met with Hutch, did a whole eval, chest boards, posture photos, jump numbers, performance metrics. Had some movement deficiencies from the start. Um, he's a pretty compressed narrow, but that's we can get into that like in a later video and go through that a little bit more honestly. But had some range of motion stuff, and this was one of his first bullpens in the gym. And so this is a rear view. Obviously, you can see when we get to like this point at foot plant, and then we kind of run through. He's got some hip range of motion stuff for sure. Everything kind of crashes together. Um, but like honestly threw pretty well. So we were working on stuff, but it wasn't necessarily a huge issue. He's super narrow, so like knee over toe isn't like the worst thing in the world for him, especially like he maintained a decent foot. There's some arm path stuff obviously there, but like he moved down the mound fast enough. He got to a pretty easy scap load, I guess, even with kind of what he had going on. I think he was like 85 to 86, touching 88. I guess so 85 to 87, touching 88. I think he ended up hitting a 90 for the first time the end of this fall, I believe, or this winter break, I believe, if not in the spring. Um, so like obviously there's issues in these mechanics, but like athletic, use some momentum. I've had like a back foot come up here, like you can see, just no internal rotation in the hips, uh, and like not a great delay strategy of the left. So that's why it's like crashing in there. But in terms of like effectiveness, we obviously know there's a lot more in the tank there, which is what we worked on. But like, I mean, athletic kid blocks with the lead leg, okay. Like at least there's no like loss of a lot of energy. Just kind of it's not getting directed the right way, but we'll get to that. But all in all, like healthy. Again, we made a couple little changes, got him kind of locked in. Uh, had a good spring. And he went to Chandler Gilbert Junior College down here. And let's go. summer. That was still summer of 2022. He was here. That was winter of 2023, 2022. Dang, my timeline's off. So then he had that was right before his freshman year of college. So I had that wrong. That was a year later. I've had him for 4 years actually, not three. So there's my bad, Hutch. So last summer, before his sophomore year at Chandler Gilbert, there we go. Now we're on track. He went and played summer ball and was asked to make some changes to mechanics. And so I didn't see him for the summer of 2023. He came back winter of 2023. And I'll just play this video and shut my dumb mouth up and you guys can see where he got to.
So they asked him to throw sidearm.
Uh, Partially like arm slot stuff, and I mean, I don't really want to go into much detail on that. I don't want to bash anybody, but I think it honestly came from a look at because his metrics weren't great before this. He had like a dead zone fastball, so like not a lot of vert, just kind of a dead zone 87-mile-an-hour fastball, decent curveball. So changes were attempted to be made, but I think this is a prime example of a kid that already had some movement issues, whatever we want to call it. He's oriented as hell. Um,
Yeah, some asymmetries or whatever, right? Like
I
one
mean,
side rotates more than the other.
he was just layered and upon layered of compensatory patterns.
A lot of compression.
Cause he like a narrow and he like big dude. He's like 6'3", 6'4", strong. So like he was just able to compress the hell out of his skeleton. And then you add in some of Bill's concepts of like helical angles. There's some natural shapes that we as humans with our shapes should take to help us move to the best of our abilities. And you can kind of see that in everyday actions and athletic abilities. Like different shape people are going to move different ways for the most part. Um,
And you can
but when
see
you,
that with their breathing pattern, right? Like that's
mhm,
what you mean by narrow. They're compensating to get that exhale,
mhm,
right? Like they have to compensate to try and get
to get
air out
all
of their
their,
lungs,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah. I have some face structure photos of him too, which we'll look at as well. So this dude's been a grinder with me, honestly. We've been through the ringer, like trying stuff out because, I
JUCO
mean,
bandit.
he is, shout out to Hutch. He is absolutely freaking bought in because we've tried, I mean, you'll see, we've done some weird stuff. We've tried some weird stuff. So,
That's
I mean,
cool.
this is how he showed up winter break before sophomore year. And it was just like,
Wow, that hurts my shoulder just looking at it.
yeah, like side bendy, no ground, no juice, side bendy. Like, I mean, yeah, late, just not
Look at
good.
the timing. Yeah, the
Yeah,
timing's just way off.
not good. And for me at the time, like we tried to make some change. Here's another one. Oh no, it's
So
not.
a narrow ISA, just for people listening, they're like a lot of times when I'm watching kids throw, I can kind of tell if they're like a narrow versus a wide because of their arm slot. So for a lot of guys, like a sidearm or like a lower arm slot might be more natural, but because he's a tall narrow, like because of his structure, you would expect him to feel more natural with like that more over the top delivery, which would be like a more rising fastball, like true backspin, more of a 12-6 curveball, right? Um,
Yeah,
but a wide ISA like that might be more like a slider, like a sweeper, and have more like that sinker ball.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like
When I'm trying to help pitch design or if I'm trying to help guys develop stuff, and this video is kind of cool, perfect too. This is also backtracking his freshman year before he went to summer ball for that summer that up in Canada that he was doing all who knows what he was doing. Um, but yeah, if I'm doing pitch design, I'm generally trying to, if I have to just guess off the gate, I'm trying to get narrows to have more vertical stuff, spin,
Less horizontal break,
less
you would say
horizontal,
too,
yeah,
right?
and and wides I'm trying to get more and more horizontal, and if we can get some vertical action, great. But like in terms of pitch design, we're trying to go here with wides and here with narrows. Um, Here's Hutch freshman year. So this is backtracking a little bit, but this is like, I mean, that's, I think in this
Timing
game,
looks
I
way
think he
better.
punched out like 7 or 8 in this game. It was up to like 91, I believe. So like
That's that 12-6 curveball
good
too. That thing
curveball.
drops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 12,
that's pretty
and
nasty.
then, and honestly, his fastball spin numbers still weren't great, but like that curveball's good enough that
Spin
like,
rate, you mean? Like he just wasn't had a high spin rate.
uh, and like no induced vert. It would honestly be like a 11 horizontal, 15 vert at 1900 spin was most of his fastballs if I had to
I mean,
guess. So
yeah,
like
that's just not that elite, I guess I'd say.
nothing special, right? But this just shows like a guy comfortable on his helical angle, even with some movement stuff. But I mean, this is like I thought I thought this was like we stay here for another year and he's gone, you
To
know,
make a big jump.
he's
Yeah.
gonna make a really big jump. And so kudos to him for all the hard work. So then I had, and in hindsight, honestly, I'll stop sharing for a second. In hindsight, honestly, I for sure failed him as a coach by not trying to change more. We made some changes, but I don't want to have to run through all this video.
You mean motion and
No,
orientations?
I know we kept working on the table. I meant from like I would call myself his pitching coach too.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
and I don't think we made. I was so on a like, what do I do? Spring is starting right now. I don't want to make this about like coaching methodologies, but didn't want to make too much of a change.
Yeah, it's the
We,
time of the
yeah,
year. Honestly,
I gotta be, yeah, I gotta be careful how I word
that's
those
the
little
big one
sentences.
though. I think there's times out of the year where I think like you do try and make mechanical changes,
Yeah,
but like if they're in competition, like they need to be so dialed in to like feel and just like competing.
and
Where
that's where we got to because January of 2023 is like, I mean, we're talking like playing time chances based on mechanics. If he makes a change away from what he was told to do, we're talking competition, like he's got to be ready to compete. So we really didn't make that many changes to be as much as I would have liked to make more, is what I'm saying.
yeah,
So then this is how he shows up beginning of this summer. Actually, I don't even think this is
after a
beginning.
uh big drop in velo too, right?
Yeah, so sophomore year, I mean, he was like 87, 90, touching 90, not sitting 90. And
Right.
he threw the most innings, I think, in their league. And like did well, but I mean, guy tall, skinny righties throwing eight are
Right.
a dime a dozen now, right?
We got a D2 offer, but like a right-handed pitcher throwing 88, like you ain't gonna start at a big D for sure.
And honestly, I think this is not early. I think this is like his second, third short box because his first one, to be honest, was worse than this. Like there's beginnings for good mechanics here. Like I don't hate that little momentum ride. He's spun out just a little bit. Like he's having to try to create a lot of force in the ground, which isn't probably
Share
that.
your screen again.
Oh shoot, I forgot. There we go. All right. So this was, what was I saying? This was like his second short box this summer after coming back. Like,
He was healthy though, right? No,
yeah, he's
yeah,
been healthy the whole time. Um, which would be a whole nother story if he wasn't. So like beginning's good mechanics, knee out little bit of torque but into the ground or having to make up. Little side bendy.
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, There's that big drop too. Like he's not
yeah,
like riding the slope.
yeah, he stays high and then hammers down in. But like,
Center of mass.
yeah, so a little funky, but back on the right track. So KPIs for me, what I was really looking at was we had to get hip external rotation, posture screenshot. All right, so this was him at that short box. KPIs wise, needed left hip ER, needed to help him create a delay on his
You
left
can see
side.
that hit going forward. It's
Yeah.
in front of the right.
Um, if we zoom in, you could see some ear differences and some neck differences. He ended up getting more outside of his right foot than this later in the summer, which I had to refer out to Mike K to help me get him back on the right track. But yeah, you can kind of see his pitching mechanics there, right?
That
He has to
side bend,
he
right?
has to yeah, he has to torque into the right foot to try to get ground force, which makes him side bend through the right side. And his right side gets driven up front, which takes away
Timing.
all of his left hip ER. And then he's not able to move his innominates when he's at front foot plant, and so he has to come around. So this summer, the issue that we had once we kind of got mechanics a little bit better, which I'll show those, was he's getting a little cutty, and I think that's still kind of his miss right now. Is until I get him really clean left hip ER, his miss is going to be cut fastballs and his curveball not being 12-6. So lots of pile ball and catch play stuff where he was working like just like real easy, low effort 12-6 curveballs, trying to feel like staying behind the ball and, getting over top of it on curveball, staying behind it. Um, and you can see with like these mechanics, that's going to be a guy that's going to miss with cut. Or like,
Yeah,
or I guess technically I could be like super soft two seam run, like balls fading and dying
that's
because
like
you're
that
just
early
yeah,
pronation.
because you're just getting pulled way off of it. All right, so then actually, I guess I could go to the short box from this August because I have so guys grinding all summer. Our kind of normal day would be show up, foam roll, do all the breathing resets, get on the table, see where we're at, throw plows, and do our spin camp as if guys need like to just kind of work on how they're spinning the ball. We just call it spin camp, and they have different like baseballs with different drawings or colorings on them to help kind of see where they're going. Go to the park, play catch, and then hit a lift. And that was kind of his whole summer. And so this was July.
That's like a month and a half of training, two
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, I'd say 2 months, May to July, yeah. So now like I'd say a better backside, still kind of getting grippy through the foot. He still has on the table, he honestly has super limited ERs. And I think he has some magnified IRs, so I don't think he has as much internal rotation as it seems like he represents with on the table. So there's still like working on the ability to use the ground, but rides the slope way better, getting back to some speed.
He's able to
Little
drop down the mound too. That's
yeah,
one of the things that stands out to me.
little late, but not bad. But there's like less of that bad side bend. That's just more of like his hip pointing.
I'm watching his head too. It's
Yeah,
it's not moving as
but
much.
you see there.
Yeah, what's that? That's late IR, right?
Yeah, I
Hip
mean he's just
hip
not
extension.
has no hip extension. So that's just yeah, that's just getting hammered in the pelvis and not being able to get that left hip to come back. I believe I have some side
That's
view of
probably
that.
also the delay of the left. Like his right side's getting out in front early because he's not able to delay the left.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
I was
So
thinking when I saw that.
here's the rear view of that same pitch. So just like
Uh, you can
his
see him sit back though.
so that was what we've determined his miss now is if that butt gets too far under his foot, like in line with his foot and doesn't sit back, that's when he gets cutty. But you can see like right there, there's still the side bend. I mean, still far from absolutely perfect, but with how he's on the table and how hard it is to get changes to be made, see how that's just
He's way out there. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, guys, welcome. we just kind of wanted to take a chance to start doing case studies of specific clients that we're working with, and just highlighting some of the process that we follow, but trying to give specific examples of like what this client was dealing with, some of the things they had tried that had helped, some of the things that they were trying that were not helping, and then just using this as a way to hopefully like have other people learn from this specific case. So Richie, like you've been working with this athlete for a number of years, right? And he's kind of had some ticks down in velocity recently, right? And so his goal was to throw harder and adjust. I mean, you can kind of explain more detail than me, but
Yeah. We can go through a 3-year view, or I guess 2.5, almost 3-year view of what Hutch has gone through. So let me share my screen here. So until like this makes that's where I'm honestly not. I'm okay with it. Obviously, I want to make it better. I would love to show everyone a absolutely perfect pitching mechanics. We'll let the trolls do their thing, but
right, you see a lot of big leaguers with that big side bend too.
but like where he's at on the table and his movement capabilities, like that makes sense to me at least. But we had to really, so then let's get to final pen, because we had to take light for a couple because of working so much of that like lead leg extension, I guess you were calling it. He started developing some like left groin discomfort, which
Mm.
also makes sense. Just has like no ability for like
Like
that's the
adductor,
yeah. That's where all that focal stress is going.
he's trying to slow down. He's trying to slow his left side down.
And not to get in the weeds with this stuff, because if people are still listening to this, they're going to be more wanting to watch the pitching mechanics and the weird shit that we say. There's my first curse word. We made it quite a while before that hit.
I was gonna say
Um,
left groin.
so I could not get left hip external rotation to improve. And then I sent some pictures over to the wizard, Dr. Mike, and he was just so far outside his right foot, as you saw in that posture photo. Trying to turn him, I had to get him inside his right foot before I turned him left, and then try
Yeah,
to
he
get
was
some
turned
ER.
right so hard that he
He
couldn't
was
make a
just
left turn.
shoved. Yeah, he was just shoved way
That's what
outside
I
his
see
right.
a ton. Yeah, when the guys have to, I mean, that's what the side bend is, right?
Hmm?
Like they're just trying to get to that release point, and so they have to crank like their sacrum is turned to the right, so they have to crank so hard through their upper body to get out in front, right? To get that paddle out in front of them. I see that all the time. That's probably one of the
So
biggest things I see with
yeah,
narrows,
like
especially. But
100%. So let's see. This was he left on. This was Friday morning. He drove to Arkansas Tech Friday night.
wow, it's a lot better back hip extension.
Boom,
It looks like
boom.
too.
Yeah. So I mean, and honestly, like I only got him probably 10 or 15 degrees of hip ER on his left. So like, there's still. We're gonna work remotely. We're gonna keep working on stuff. I mean, there's some funky with the knee all of a sudden the last couple weeks. Honestly, like that's
Interesting. I'm watching that back foot too.
yeah. I mean, you can see the knee and
Comes
the
up.
foot working together. It's like so this summer. I mean, that's just
So he's
better.
still missing a lot of internal rotation on that right
Yeah,
side, probably right, like
yeah.
true
Like
internal
see
rotation.
where how the foot strikes too, the front foot.
Center of mass, yeah.
So we still got, and that's where I like to take. You got to take the 'cause, like look if we pause these at certain points and didn't look at the in between. So we just paused here and then we went here and then we went there and we're like, look at all this. Besides, I
There's
mean,
really subtle things that I see though. Like I'm
yeah,
watching the
and
head,
I love all the hard work that he put in because oh here I have some other cool stuff in here though actually.
and that just shows how much more is left in the tank too. Like you have a 6'3" pitcher
Right.
with like a pretty big frame. I mean, back, he could be throwing 90 plus
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
so we got him back up to 92 this summer. This
And he was
was
like 85, 86 in the spring, right? Touching like
mm,
87, 88.
he was touching like 88, 89, I believe, yeah. KPIs wise, if we're getting back to some of that. Um, so
Here's my head,
if we're looking at metrics, everyone gets to turn their head sideways
right?
unless Jesse can do
A
some
lot
cool
of you, a
stuff.
lot of you pitchers probably are turning your head sideways.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, but so metrics wise, he had never thrown a 21-inch vertical
Dang.
fastball in his life. Spin's still decently low, but our big thing was like we were just looking at spin efficiency because
Talk about that. Yeah.
his fastball his fastball was probably like 78 to 82% spin efficiency on the
Dang.
Rapsodo. I like the TrackMan better for most of the metrics, but I mean it's what we used all summer, so it's a good thing to base our stuff off of. But when he was right, he started getting the 92, 93, 95, and so like at least now with that induced vert, I'd take it 88 mile an hour fastball there over a 90 at when he had it was like it'd be like 14 vert, 12 horizontal, and like 1800 spin, which is like I mean
I think we
like
focus too much on velocity a lot of times where it's like
that's a
that's just one metric about like the quality of a pitch.
yeah. I mean all the big league pitchers that I watch throw pens would be pissed if they threw a fastball like that. Like they're avoiding that at all costs. So yeah, so KPIs wise, like, and if we're kind of getting back to some assessment concepts, my assessment of him is we still have quite a bit of range of motion to do to improve. He needs some hip ER. He needs to once we get hip ER back, then we can start chasing some more hip internal rotation, and then I think we could see 2 or 3 more miles an hour tick up on him, and he's been busting his butt, so he's gonna get there. I would I would assume if we get some of that IR back eventually, we should see some jump numbers improve. So his like lower body power should show that it goes up. And then metrics wise for with like tech is trying to keep just keeping an eye on if he's cutting the ball and try
The
to
spin
improve.
efficiency and
Yeah, if
the
we keep the spin efficiency up,
vertical break.
then that curveball is going to play better. His changeup is fantastic. I didn't even touch on that. So he can throw his changeup for a strike at any time in a count. So that's kind of nice to have too, and it has some good movement. So just like trying to keep that fastball vert and get the velo up and have that true shape of his curveball that he used to have.
He
I mean,
got
because
the
what
12-6 back too, right? Isn't that one of the
yeah,
things
yeah,
you mentioned
it
as
was
well?
on. It was a little less consistent than when he was freshman year when he was dialed in. It was really on. But I mean, we did lives 2 weeks ago, and guys were complaining about his curveball, saying how good it was. So
Yeah, it's not about just a number on a radar gun, guys. A lot of people don't realize that.
yeah, yeah, and like his mechanical stuff, the issues he still has, they like I'm not okay with them, but they make sense to me.
You know
Like
why
that's
he's doing it, right?
yeah, and now it's just like figuring out how to change it. I think one of the things that you and I talked about off camera was like training program design and stuff. Like he barely did any upper body all summer. I let him train the first couple weeks hard, and then my big thing this summer was like I need to take out as much interference as I can. So I need to take out anything and everything that is going to compress his upper half and squish him so much that his center of gravity just keeps getting shoved forward. And for us,
That's
that
the
was
ER, yeah, because
uh
he's limited in ER, right?
and for us that was upper body. Like I couldn't figure out stuff to give him that wasn't going to do that. So for the last 2 months of the summer, he'd do like one little upper body day a week, and it was rolls and crawls and arm bars and cable press. It was just eyewash stuff, really.
A lot of the people, or like the three people listening to this part right now, they're probably wondering why we're not strengthening their rotator cuff. And well, we are though. That's the thing. Like an arm
Yeah,
bar, like that lights up your when you do it the right way. That lights up everything.
yeah. No, I mean it's counterintuitive to a lot of people because they're like, "Oh, throw harder. We need to get stronger."
I actually have a
And
guy like that too, where we took out his upper body stuff for the most
yeah,
part, and
yeah,
his layback just got way better.
uh-huh. But I mean, to me, it makes total sense. We get the system moving better. Like he's strong enough. The kid's a he's a athletic freaking kid. And that was the other part I didn't really want to get into too much either. Is after that freshman season, that whole fall they had to be in the weight room at school.
Yeah, and it's like a one size fits all approach
Just
with a lot of barbell training, probably, right?
but if I start talking about it too much, I'm gonna say more curse words.
Yeah,
Um, but it screwed him up. It 100% screwed him up.
especially being a narrow, like they don't need all that barbell training.
He did 3 days a week of fucking trap bar deadlifts. Excuse my French. That was the first one.
Trap bar deadlifts 3 times a
Or
week.
2 days a week, and then
I
a
mean,
front squat the other day.
that might be fine for a wide though, right? Like they're not
I
gonna
mean,
struggle with a
I
trap
don't think
bar as much.
I don't think that needs to be for anybody that's rotating twice a week with
True.
that.
It's
But
true.
I used to
Yeah.
program that, so what do I know? Yeah. So that's Hutch. It's been the last almost 4 years now. It's been fantastic. He's been grinding. It's interesting to see a guy for that long lose relative motions and change orientations. So like early on he had no IRs, but he had a bunch of ERs when I first started with him. So
That's
he
what
was
you would
just getting
expect when someone
yeah,
isn't as compressed, right?
yeah, so he wasn't
Or
as
narrow.
compressed and he was getting shoved forward, but he wasn't getting too compressed. And I couldn't find them, but I'll look later and do something with them. But I have some like up close face posture photos of then and now, or then and then last year and then now. Because we worked a lot on head and neck and posture with him. So there's some, I mean, I had to go down rabbit holes to try to figure out this hip external rotation. It was
You were doing a
crazy.
lot of like suboccipital
Yeah.
releases, right?
For a while there, the only way I could get any external rotation was to do some neck stuff, yeah.
As you're saying, if
Which
your neck is stiff and doesn't move well, then your hips probably also don't move well, and your shoulder doesn't move well, and your knee and
probably
your foot and your wrist and interesting.
probably
It's almost
yeah,
like
so
it's all connected somehow.
almost. So it's like we've been able to watch this guy change his strategies to produce force and provide relative motion where he can and take it away where he needs to and needs to. I'm just grateful he stuck with it. He could have jumped ship a while ago with how
Right?
honest I am with him of like, yeah, this sucks. I don't know how to get this hip to move better. We're gonna try this. We're gonna try this. Come back tomorrow. We'll try this. We'll try this. So
You don't have all the answers.
no, far from it. I have none of the answers. But yeah, I mean that like now getting done with this little case study, that's probably the coolest part, honestly, is the guy stuck it out.
Some guys won't though, and then the like I think yeah, kudos to him because I mean, going through that process and like being willing to do it our way, which is like different from a lot of
Yeah,
other
and
ways of training.
him to see like up to 92 and now he's down, and instead of being like, why am I not throwing hard? Yeah, instead of him being like, I was throwing hard, now I'm not. Get it right, fix
I just
it.
got to get stronger,
It's like,
right? A lot of those guys would see their velo go down, and be like, all right, I got to lift more.
yeah,
I'm not strong enough. I got to start doing all this low trap strengthening for my arm care.
yeah. So, Hutch, I appreciate you for buying in because I mean, that's the only way any of this stuff works. I had a conversation a couple years ago with a client and friend of mine, pro ball guy. We are questioning a fellow friend of ours, commitment to a training regime to get healthy again. And I was the one being pretty negative, like that's not gonna work, blah blah blah. And my buddy stopped me mid sentence and said, if he believes it's gonna work and he buys into it, it's gonna work. It's like
True.
none of this interference or any of this crap that we talk about matters if like the guy's not bought in or
Yeah.
if they're trying 2 or 3 different things. Like
Right.
I have a couple clients that like go to 2 or 3 different pitching facilities, and then they come in and lift with me and somewhere else. I'm just like,
I've had that a lot. Yeah.
You can't just throw everything at it and expect more is not more. More is not
More
better.
is not better. Better is better, as
Yes.
Bill Hartman would say.
Yes. So, I mean,
That's good.
none of this would be possible to work without a client like buying in that much. So that's pretty cool
We're
to
fortunate
think
in
about.
that. Yeah. Like it's always fun to see the athlete like taking ownership and like being accountable for the process, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
you could try it for 2 weeks and then not get. I've literally had clients who are like they train with me for like a month or whatever, and then they're not seeing. But yeah, like no names calling, but like basically they're wanting it to be like, all right, I'm gonna get better in 2 weeks. It's like you're not even doing the stuff I asked. Like you're doing all this other stuff that I told you not to do, and then you're wondering why you're
Yeah.
not seeing results. Like, dude, you're not trusting the process. Like this is not the process. Like I don't know. I see that a lot.
Is that the 76ers? Trust the process?
Trust the process. Yeah, it's don't rush the
100%.
process. You can't force these things. Like especially when you're trying to restore range of motion. Like more effort with the breathing activities, it's not going to work.
No,
Trying to lift heavier because you think you're weak, like, it's not going to work. Um, yeah, there's no shortcuts to this type of stuff.
I hear that. I hear that.